going to give you a little history tour of Bradford.
Oh, yeah.
That's
Get
why
excited.
we're making this video
Get
for you.
excited.
Enjoy.
Yeah.
Sit back. So, guys, how did we become a 5-8? Like, what's the journey that we've been on to get us here?
So actually, the primary building, or South Campus, it was a K6. All the students were there at that building.
In 1990.
Correct. And then it exploded, this community, so they needed to build another school. Well, this community didn't want to have two rivalry elementaries, so they decided to build a K6, have one campus be K3 and the other campus be 4 through 6. So that's what happened. In 1994, the North Campus was opened at that point, and those students came over. What I learned from a former teacher who was here during the time is that at one time the South Campus had 10 temporary buildings.
Which is crazy.
And then
There was a movement after 1994, starting around 2003, correct?
yeah, that was when Falcon Bluffs was being built and thought of. And so there was a movement back here in the valley that the parents and some of the administration thought, well, maybe we should become a K8 school and be kind of like an alternative for a middle school. So we tried doing that. The parents really tried to push it with the board, but the board didn't approve it at that time. So at one point we had a temporary building over here. So we had K3 down at the primary, our South Campus. And then over here we had 4 through 6. At one time we had a temporary building out in the front too.
Really?
Yeah.
You were that packed to the
We were
gills.
that packed to the gills. And then we started to get kind of declining enrollment.
Which was a result of the Jeffco-wide choice enrollment. So
That and natural,
attrition.
nutrition, right.
So Bradford wasn't the only school impacted by choice enrollment. However, we started to see some pretty significant decline as a result of choice enrollment,
Correct.
right?
So, we usually had about 120, 130 kids per class, and then it started getting down into the 80s. So we as a staff then, you were on
I was
Bradford
here.
at that
so,
time.
yeah, in 2015, in the fall of 2015, it was kind of that come to Jesus moment where we as a staff realized if we wanted to keep the staff, the veteran staff that we've had, we needed to do something. If we
Correct.
wanted to keep our kids here, we needed to do something. So we came together as a staff first and had a lot of dialogue around what do we do and what do we present to the community that will help us maintain students and help us, transition and transform ourselves for the better. And we collectively agreed that we would become a K8. And initially we wanted to pursue, we wanted to become a K8. And then through the dialogue with the community,
Correct.
the community said yes, we want to be a K8, and the collective decision from there was we wanted to pursue expeditionary learning.
Correct.
Initially.
And that would kind of give us our, for lack of a better word, a brand
Yeah.
here at Bradford, having that piece. But what we discovered through that is we couldn't necessarily do expeditionary learning, but we could do PBL. So we started as a staff being trained in what is a PBL. And wouldn't you say that we're still learning and evolving in that?
Very much so.
Yeah.
So in 2016, we got final board approval to become a K8, and the 2016-2017 school year was the first year where we had 7th graders. We knew that we would incrementally build up to 8th grade, and so that school year, 16-17 school year was really transformational for everyone on the staff because everyone was learning PBL. Everyone was learning how do we function as a K8?
Correct.
How do we support a middle school? How do we support the longer continuum of becoming a full-fledged, highly successful K8? So here we are at the South Campus.
Yes.
I love this campus.
This is where they become friends.
Yes, like
In
us.
kindergarten. Yes.
Kindies.
Kindies.
Aw.
They're so cute. And then they grow up to be 8th graders.
And then they're not cute anymore.
No.
Different kind of cute.
But let me tell you about the history of kind of the principalship or administration here at Bradford.
Important to know.
It is, because it's the evolution of this school, right?
Right.
So Bradford, when it was first built, they had one principal, and I'm not sure if they had AP at that time or not, but they had one principal. For those of you who are old timers, Harry Morgan. And then when Harry retired, he opened up the intermediate building. So he was between two buildings. So they had one principal, two buildings, and then AP at each building. The reason they did that is, again, the community wanted to keep the consistency for the kids. They wanted to have one joint school. So they wanted one leadership kind of model. So that's kind of where that came from. Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
Okay.
Got that, new people? And Lisberg.
I got it.
Then what happened was we had a principal for 3 years. Again, one principal, two APs. But then the two staffs really felt that we wanted two strong principal leaders. So we went through the vetting process, and we came to the point where we had Sam Palomero was hired for the intermediate building, and then Jean Lewis was the principal, full-time principal over at the South Campus.
And did they have APs, or was it just principal?
It was just principal. And they were strong leaderships. They complemented each other, which was nice, and that's what the staff appreciated about the two leaderships.
So then when we decided to become a K8, we continued with that principal model for the first year.
Correct.
The second year, we knew that our principal at the North Campus would be retiring.
Correct.
So we engaged in a dialogue process as a whole staff
Yeah, for about 6 months.
for 6 months to really figure out how are we going to continue to become and build our K8 and ensure that there's continuity between both buildings since kids come to both buildings. So we ultimately decided as a staff to go and have one principal between both buildings
Correct.
and an AP at each building.
Correct.
We also felt it was really important to have an instructional coach at each building.
Correct.
Because prior to that, at the South Campus, the coach was filling a dual role of coach, AP kind
Correct.
of thing. And we had a coach at the North Campus who was filling the role of coach/dean. And that was too much for the individuals in that role, and it didn't allow them to fully support teachers or students or administration.
Correct.
So the current model we have at Bradford K8 is Jean Lewis is our principal. He goes between both buildings. There will be a schedule that comes out and tells you where Jean is if you're curious, or just pop in. We have at the South Campus, we have AP Cassandra Burkhart?
Yes.
I think I got that right, Cassandra. I'm sorry if I messed that up. And at the North Campus, our AP is Wendy Scott.
Correct.
Both campuses both have an instructional coach. At the South Campus, your coach is Jen Knighton. And at the North Campus, your coach is Melissa Stuckey. Crew is a fundamental piece of who we are as Bradford.
Bradford traits.
We have the Bradford trait, which stemmed from the work that we did with Crew. Crew, for those of you who are new, is we have dedicated crew time every day.
Which is K8.
K8. Not the same time at every building, but the goal of Crew is to cultivate relationships with our students, to give them that safe place and those safe people who will support them, care for them, and have their back. And crew is a fundamental piece of who we are as Bradford. And as Liz said, from crew, we realized we needed to redefine our character traits at Bradford.
Yes, respect, responsibility, problem solver, critical thinker, collaboration, and integrity.
Oh my gosh!
There it is. Yes. So
So-
those are the Bradford character traits that we go K8, and that is in the classroom. That's not just a part of crew. So.
And from our work with crew to our work with character traits, we realized we wanted a way to recognize kids, so we also have something called Stellar Stallions. We implemented that starting in February of last year. Stellar Stallions is a recognition of student character, and your teams will get more into what Stellar Stallions are, but that is a seed that's been planted that's starting to grow and have fruition in our systemic K8. Now, what are some other things systemically that we've really focused on?
Well, we have worked in professional development, and our professional development here at Bradford is teacher-driven, and it really is about teachers as learners. So one big aha for me coming here at Bradford was that our staff meetings are not about business. Our business happens in the business committee, and that information you can get from the business committee notes, or you can talk to your business committee person. Nevertheless, the learning happens in the staff meetings, which is huge. And that's a seed that we've planted as teachers, as learners, that we bring to our students.
It's really important, I think, for people coming into Bradford to recognize that this is a community of educators who are learners. We strive to become better at what we do, and that was a shift when we became a full-fledged K8. We really chose as a staff to invest in the learning for ourselves so that we could do a better job in the classroom for our kids.
And now we're at a place where we are experts, and we're working hard to continue that expertise.
Yeah, and
So these are not new things for us.
no, and I think one of the things also to stress for all of us, new and old, is that we've planted a lot of seeds over the past 4 or 5 years, and we're really starting to see those start to grow and become what we envisioned down about 4 or 5 years ago. We are a community of learners. Our students are starting to embody the character traits we value. Yes, our growth scores are starting to go up, and we're also starting to really become a full-fledged K8 community, which was something we had hoped would come about from this change. So we hope you have enjoyed the Bradford History Tour. Talk to us if you have questions.
Yeah.